evening. This is Brian Pirano. I wanted to thank you for tuning in and showing up. I got a bunch of notes, got a bunch of things I want to go over today. Today's talk is about flexible dining, how to make it work for you. What are the concepts? What is it? How do we get it all to kind of vibe with where you're at, what's going on, and really have you truly understand it to leverage it as much as possible. Tonight I'm staining. I'm pretty excited about that. I love staining way more than sitting. I actually despise sitting. It hurts. My body aches. So I'm up right and live and got a lot of power and energy there. So what I want to do is go over what the concepts are and really give you guys a true idea of how to do flexible dining and what it all entails. And most importantly, it's kind of started with some of the misconceptions as well and go from there. So if you have questions or anything, please feel free to comment inside below at in the box, and we will go over those as well. If they're applicable to what I'm going over currently, then I will answer them. If not, then I will answer them at the end. So concepts around flexible dining. First, what is it? Well, first, for starters, flexible dining is not a diet, okay? It's a nutritional concept that allows you to manage macronutrients, which are carbs, proteins, fats, and get those into a overall daily caloric intake that manages fiber. I also like to take a peek at sugar as well. Not saying that sugar is an underlying determinant of success with weight loss. You can have sugar and still lose weight. And ultimately what we're doing is looking to hit different numbers in the carbs, proteins, fats, fiber, sugar. And if we're ultimately doing that, we got a good way of tracking and knowing how much food we need to eat and where we are at for your day. Okay. Now, the most important thing is that food selection ends up being ultimately yours. And that's important as well, because as long as I've been doing this, I ultimately know that eating clean doesn't necessarily work for most people 100% of the time. And if you're going off a perfectionist attitude, it's not going to be successful. Perfection, humans, we can try and be as perfect as possible. We aren't. We always mess something up. And so just accounting for the mess ups allows you to have a lot more success, I found, both with your fitness, with your nutrition, and everything all in between there. Okay, so let's go over some of the misconceptions. First, let's go over why I like flexible dieting. I was coaching a client that was just getting into figure competition, and in that competition, she had came across the flexible dieting model. She's like, "Hey, Brian, I want you to go check this out." And so she sent me over to IIFYM and If It Fits Your Macros, and I started reading about it. I'm like, this kind of makes a lot of sense to me. And for me personally, some of the key components that I think about when establishing my diet, my nutrition, my fitness, all these things are first, I'm a pretty busy guy. I try and be busy and go with one, with my own personal activity, two, with my clients, and everything else in between. And then lastly, but most importantly, my family. So they get squeezed in there as well. That's why I was a little behind the last couple sessions, because I get up there and I have to handle the kids and whatnot, help get them to bed and so on and so forth. You understand that if you're a parent. But so the main reasons why I got into it was first, this client, she got into it and she had a tremendous amount of success. I mean, she was on fire. She was able to eat the foods that she wanted. We programmed out her weekly work. She was an online client. We programmed out her weekly workouts that she did, and so we had a lot of success with those workouts. And it really matched her personality quite a bit as well, and that allowed her to have a ton of success. So, off launches that, she ended up losing like 1% body fat every week. It was insane. She went from like 27% to 18%, and she was pretty much stage ready when it came time, and she was on fire. So I love clients like that. I want you to be like that too, and so that's why we're going over this, to give you a very good clarity, and hopefully some things I say break that up for you and allow clarity in that. So back to that. So for me, I've got 4 kids, so pizza is regularly in my life. Sometimes alcohol can be present as well. Candy, ice cream, like all those things, and I want to participate in my family. That's vitally important. And so having pizza on pizza night, or popcorn at night, or all these things, that's critically important for me to participate. I don't want to be like 15, 20 years down the road when my kids are grown and they're like, well, Papa never had pizza, he never had ice cream, he never had these things that we always did, and I'm just not going to do that. There's ways to go about having the food and including it, and still having a great amount of deal of success there. So So that was it. That's kind of the main thing. So I started tracking. I started understanding more. I know way more now since I started tracking and that than I have ever in my whole life, especially in my fitness career. So I'm significantly more knowledgeable about what actually is in carbohydrates and what foods are what. And because I've consistently tracked for a long time, for a couple of years now, and so that allows me to manipulate and wiggle and stretch and bend and work my nutrition to fit my personal needs. So occasionally I'll have pizza in a week. I eat a lot of oatmeal. Knowing about the amount of carbs that I need to eat, I have a significant amount of starchy carbs in my day, and not necessarily a ton of vegetables. I do get vegetables in, just more starch for me, and so I end up eating. My macros, I'll just kind of throw those out there. They generally, my calorie intake is average about 3,500 or so. I've gone all the way up to 5,000 calories in a day. I end up gaining fat and just kind of look unkept. So I try not to go up that high ever. So about 3,500 is the average. Some days I have higher carb days, and then other days I have higher fat days. I'm kind of in a rotation. And as you get more complex and into it, and you know what you're doing, then we can add those in. And essentially, in the beginning, I just want you to track. So I'll usually, my macros kind of hit about 225 protein, about 350 carbs, and for the fat, it lies around like 80 to 90 grams most days. I'm pretty active. I work out most of the week. It's not to say that I'm working out for like an hour, but what I do is hard and challenging. So that's me. Let's move on to some of the misconceptions about the flexible dieting model. So one is that, first off, clean eating is subjective, okay? Ask your neighbor, ask a fitness professional, ask a nutritionist, ask a doctor, ask a lawyer, like whatever. They're all going to give you different definitions of what clean eating is. And so right there in itself becomes a huge misconception of, am I supposed to just eat protein and vegetables? Or like, is this food clean or is that food clean? Or I'm not supposed to eat any white vegetables, or like starches, I should say, white starches, because they'll make you gain fat. Like, it's just not a good bias to go off of. Okay, is Greek yogurt okay, or is it not? And what brand of Greek yogurt is that clean eating? Like, so it's all subjective to who you are and what your personal preferences are. Okay, hopefully we'll give you guidelines on the stuff here that will create some really good clarity for you. Even giving you numbers as well on how to kind of come up with some numbers of where you're supposed to be at. So we go back to that, the clean eating. Now, what we do know is that the basic concept of energy balance is the number one overall factor. It's kind of the overarching concept of gaining weight, losing weight. Okay, so if we burn up more calories than we take in, we end up generally losing weight. If we take in more than we're burning, we gain weight. All right. Now, even if you're eating clean and that's what you're told to do, you can still eat too much clean food, and guess what? You're going to gain weight. Okay, so you can have all the chicken, sweet potatoes, brown rice, broccoli, asparagus, spinach. Those are the clean, and fish. Those are the cleanest ones off the top of my head that most people tend toward when they think of clean eating. And guess what? You still eat too much of that and still not get the results that are desired. The second one is that as popularity has grown with flexible dieting, is that you only eat junk food. So, like, if it fits your macros, that's where the IIFYM fits into, is that that people that follow that protocol or the flexible dieting model end up trying to get away with as much junk food as possible. And yes, you can lose weight having Twinkies and McDonald's and all this stuff. It's not chips and all that. It's not really going to be ideal to just your overall nutritional health and concept. There was a professor, Mark, that had done a study and ended up losing like 27 pounds eating Twinkies every day. And so you tell me like how that worked out for him. There's been documentaries of people eating McDonald's every day and they lose weight. And so it really goes back to that energy balance. So I digress there a little bit. So eating junk food is not the whole concept, and the goal is to stop really thinking about foods as being clean or dirty, and just kind of breaking them down to their macronutrient composition. Flexible dieting doesn't work for me. Is another concept. Like, maybe you've tried it, maybe you've tried this diet or that diet, the Atkins, South Beach, the list goes on and on. Just ask Google; it'll give you a different one every day, a new one every day. So the biggest point here is that not working for you is that you're not paying attention enough. Is that if you were to follow a clean eating lifestyle, you can still find out what that macronutrient profile is, or a meal plan. You can still dial that in and find out what the macros are, what the calorie content is for all that. So 4 ounces chicken is 4 ounces chicken. In terms of calories, in terms of the protein content and fat and carbs in that. So there's 0 carbs obviously in chicken, but essentially, like going back to what is quote unquote called clean is like chicken, rice, asparagus, broccoli, spinach, things like that. And you have like 8 meals of that in a day, and that's what you're told to do. Then like just do the math on that, and it'll give you what your macros are for the day. The benefits of the flexible dieting is that it creates consistency, okay? And so if you're clean eating and you're only eating those specific foods, then you get a really good idea of what is going on, and you can manipulate here and there. So think of, we're in 2016 now. We've got technology at our hand, and that really creates a lot of leverage for us. But let's go back to like the 70s, the 80s, and when you had a book that you had to write down on a piece of paper and get a calculator out and do the math. So when people followed meal plans, they would eat the same things day in, day out, and that's where that bodybuilder type clean eating lifestyle came from, because it's so damn hard to like recalculate anything if you didn't eat the exact same foods all the time, because you'd have to go open the book, write it down, redo all your math, and then that ultimately came out to where you wanted to. So it's a lot of work, and that, quite frankly, that's one of the reasons why I never did it, or I could never necessarily reach that level of leanness or sophistication in my diet as I have been able to now, and it's significantly more easier than it ever has, and I'm actually leaner and stronger, and I have a significant amount more muscle just because I'm just tracking my food. I'm paying attention rather than just eating whatever foods I did. I grew up in the endurance world with a lot of athletics, running, swimming, triathlons. I got some into CrossFit, and then after that, it only came in the last 2 years that I really kind of dialed up the nutrition knowledge through the flexible dining. That's made a world of light years of difference from what I was doing before, just telling people to have protein and vegetables, and it just wasn't happening. People just wouldn't do it. So we go back off of the consistency and the clean eating, and going back to the notion of if you had an extra 4 ounces chicken, then you end up going over. If you have a half a cup of rice here and a cup of rice there, guess what? You've gone over. If you cooked it in oil and you didn't account for that, and the last time you didn't, you've gone over where you're at. So you end up not really doing a good job of tracking and paying attention to specific numbers. So another conception is that it works for aesthetics, but it's not healthy. So it's kind of going back to the rule number 1 of Pop-Tarts and all that type of stuff. What I want to say here is that the psychological effects of following a strict diet are tremendous. Okay, if you look in the bodybuilding community, which is really where a lot of the kind of obsessive type of behavior comes from with the clean eating, is that when someone's preparing for a meet, a stage competition, they end up all in, full focus for easily 12 weeks, but usually longer, like 16 or more. And so what happens is that they end up avoiding all the foods that they have are treats, or like their friends are doing, or their spouse or their kids or whatever. So like I would have no pizza, no ice cream, no alcohol, none of that stuff, and I wouldn't do it for weeks on end. And that becomes a pretty rough lifestyle in terms of food prep for your spouse, your eating habits, eating out. Like some people won't eat out for weeks on end. And then when they get to the show, what happens is that they feel like a god or goddess, and they're just like, rah, like up on the stage, like so empowered and excited and thrilled to be there. And then what happens is that they, as soon as they step off stage, they just have this like long checklist of donuts, pie, pizza, drinks, like all these things that they had avoided forever, and they ultimately fill in. And so what happens is in the next like 2 weeks, they gain like 20 pounds because they've been so carb restrictive and so caloric restrictive that they end up going into a calorie surplus with ease with these caloric dense foods, and all their hard efforts just vanish and disappear. So they ultimately end up like 2-3 weeks afterwards, like in way worse shape, conditioning specifically, where they're like obviously invisible muscle tone and definition disappears, and they just get in like a depressive funk, and they can't really get out of it, and they go through this actual yo-yo cycling of dieting for a show, and then off season. And so like sometimes like the big dudes, they'll gain like 40, 50 pounds in their off season. One, they're trying to bulk up and build muscle, but then two is like they just have a license to eat whatever they want. So um, one thing I'd love to argue is that a flexible model of dieting could actually lead to a lot healthier type carbs and I are becoming friends. It's fantastic, Amber. I'm super excited for that, for you to experience carbs in your life. Um, so I want to argue that following a flexible dieting way, a model, is going to actually allow you to have a healthier uh, uh, relationship with food. One is most importantly variety. Um, Two is with that variety you get a lot of micronutrients that you wouldn't get from just eating the same things over and again. So chicken and broccoli are only going to have a micronutrient of which are vitamins and minerals. They're only going to have specific ones that are getting introduced into the body. And then if you're not supplementing with a multivitamin, then you end up getting in trouble because you're going to get deficient, and that in itself is going to cause problems as well. So you get that full wide range of vitamins and minerals. Now, um, one thing, a couple things, there aren't any forbidden foods, so all foods are good. Um, there's not really any bad foods, but it's moderation. The one bad food you'd always want to avoid would be trans fats. So that stuff's no good, no bueno. So I would I would avoid those like the plague. Um, there's the transition of being really strict um, in an aesthetic way creates kind of two different lifestyles of how you're eating. So you have this like competition prep, and then you have like normal life, and those are very different worlds that people live in when they're preparing for competition, and it becomes like two different type of people when they're doing it. So with flexible dieting, you get a little more normalcy in your day. Another quick perk here about having it healthier is that like you can actually engage in social situations and events, and that's one of my favorite ways to leverage the nutritional model. The flexible dieting model is that going to birthday parties or social events, having a drink or a dessert or something like that. I just leverage. I save calories. I save space to allow for specifically carbs, fats at those meals, that meal time, and that totally creates a huge shift in what I'm able to do as far as maintain my results that I have, not feeling guilt or shame or emotional response to food. So there's a lot of different things there that we want to kind of think about there. Um, Another component is that you can kind of go through the choice of picking flexible models that you can actually eat a lot of food. Um, in one of the videos on the online resource is volumetrics, and volumetrics is when you understand macros and you understand how many carbs, fats, proteins, all that are inside different foods. I think I put up 1 cup of oatmeal is equivalent to, in terms of calories, carbs, proteins, fiber, roughly that of 3 bags of frozen broccoli, and it's in there, kind of explain that a little bit. And so it's kind of important to know that stuff because most people, whenever they do like broccoli, they end up eating like a couple spears of it, and they really only get like a handful of calories, like 30, maybe 40 at most, and that may not be enough to keep you full long enough or meet your fiber needs. But it really gives you options of do I want oatmeal or do I want broccoli, and then it gives you a set target of how much I should eat. Let's go through the last flexible dieting kind of concept there, so kind of try and stay on track there, is that you obsessively track and monitor your macros and calories every day, all day. I gotta be honest, last week I didn't track at all. For whatever reason, it didn't happen, and I'm okay with that. I'm back on train this week, and I was doing it for weeks on end prior to that. I didn't do it when I was on my last vacation because I just did some nutritional strategies such as the intermittent fasting and just taking a break mentally and physically, which made a big difference too. So it was good. So then go back to not obsessing over this. So in the beginning, when you're working out and moving and trying to shift your body into the transformation that you're looking for, I highly recommend that you track your food. You grow accustomed to understanding what nutrition is, how to fuel your body, and the more you track, the more hard data points that you have to be able to pivot and twist and change what you're doing. There was a time, another personal example, I went, this was approximately, it wasn't last year, I think it was the year before that. I went from January to May, I added. I started at 3,000. This is what happened. So here's the setup. December, I went through December. I said, you know what? I'm just going to allow myself to have cookies and all the treats that come through in the holiday season. Fortunately enough, I didn't run into a lot of those, so that really, really helped. And but the unfortunate part is I still got to the end of the month and the end of the year. I'm just like, I feel unkept. I don't feel great about the way I look or even feel. And so in January, I decided I was just going to track and really be on that and then focus on getting stronger as the way I was going to work out. I did some CrossFit in that time frame, but it was really about just trying to get stronger and grow some muscles. I'm still trying to grow my biceps and not going anywhere. But so I started in January at 3,000 calories. I reversed diet to see how much food I could actually get away with. And some of you have kind of talked about that reverse dieting concept. It's just simply super simple terms. You just add more food in each week or every other week to try and help stimulate metabolism, and throw more food and fuel on the fire and make that fire bigger, burn harder and brighter for your metabolism. And so what I did, I started out 3,000. I ultimately ended at 4,000. I was eating that many calories every single day. So over the course of a week's time between those 5 months, I was eating 7,000 more calories in a week than I was when I started, and my body weight stayed relatively the same. I was actually able to pack on a little bit of muscle, and it was a really good thing. So every about 2-3 weeks, I just add 200 calories, and I'd add that particularly in carbs and proteins. We're going to talk about ratios and what those numbers kind of look like here in a little bit. But so I just add those two carbs, fats as we went up, and keep proteins relatively the same. So I think I worked up to like approximately the same amount of protein, like 225 to 250, which is maybe slightly more than what I'd recommend for you. But carbs were like around 500 grams a day, and or like 400, 500 in there, and then fats were around 100. So I was eating a lot of oatmeal those times. So it was super successful as well, and I really enjoyed that process, and it really taught me a lot, because then when I was in May, I was like, you know what? It's time to cut. It's time to drop some body fat. So my metabolism was rolling at like 4,000 a day, so I just dropped it down 500 calories to 3,500, and that made a world of difference. That actually accelerated fat loss and weight loss. So I was able to lose like 10 pounds in a matter of like a couple weeks, because I just simply cut some calories and I was just tracking. So it really was so easy. But so going back to obsessively tracking, like there are seasons in your life that you should be tracking, and it's a focus point of where you're at in life that you should be doing this, and then other times it's not as important. So when I was moving into my house and trying to transition there, it was not really a great time for me to track. I was worried about significantly bigger things in my life that were going on, rather than how much oatmeal I'm having and what the macros are in it. So I had done enough that I was able to maintain, and that's the whole thing is seasons of life. Like most of you are right now in a season of life where like we need to accelerate your fat loss, weight loss, or muscle building activities. So we need to be on point, need to be on track, and put those efforts in right now. And when you get your results, it's actually way easier to maintain than it is to go anywhere. Like think of a rocket. You know, getting that rocket up off the ground is so much energy to do, but as soon as it gets up in the atmosphere, it's easy. And so you might be looking at me. I've been my momentum started years and years ago, and so I'm in momentum phase, or I'm past the momentum. I'm just in cruise phase now. So I have a real good pulse on what I need to do and how to shift that, and I've got real specific goals that I want to accomplish. Like again, building bigger biceps. So we're going to keep working on those, and I'm going to be doing specific training that's going to work toward that. So let's go on to how to figure out what the heck, how to do this. So we're going to go into first is that easiest way that has why the popularity of if it fits your macros flexible dieting model has become so popular, and it's out there and present, is that technology has made a significant difference. So all of you should be running MyFitnessPal, and you should be pretty darn good with it, and that allows you to truly dive into what it is. And there's a video in the online resources that kind of breaks down how to do MyFitnessPal, and it's super simple. I always say it takes about like a week or so of like learning uptake of just getting used to it. Everyone in here is smart. Everyone in here is capable. So using a simple app that was designed very well, and it does literally all the work for you, is something within your realm. And I would highly encourage you to lean on that technology. And in fact, you probably are holding that technology right now in some capacity, whether it's on your phone or on your desktop, which you can actually log into and do all that stuff there. So it tracks all the food that you eat, keeps it super easy to do. It calculates your macros for you, and it'll even count your calories burned, whether you got a Fitbit or you're just using your step pedometer motion, or you on your actual phone, or you're plugging in the exercise. Real quick caveat, I wouldn't recommend doing that. It creates confusion with you, especially if you're just trying to learn how to use it and follow the macros, because the macros shift and they adjust to account for exercise. I've done it both ways of just tracking without and tracking with. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be easily confused. You're like, wait a minute, I was supposed to have, like, for me, it was like, oh, I was supposed to have like 300 carbs, and now it's telling me to eat 450, and it's like at night, and I don't have enough time to eat, and or that's a really, really big meal. And someone told me once that you weren't supposed to eat after like 6 p.m. or something, and like you just get confused and you end up getting way off track. So easy not to actually track your exercise. Okay. Another super duper simple way to do this are digital scales. So that's the other way to do this. Okay. Super duper important there, and weigh and measure all the food that's easiest first. Okay. So that's going to be the easiest tip that I would suggest to you, is that I weigh it. For me personally, I weigh all my chicken. I weigh it cooked. You can weigh it uncooked, doesn't matter. You just have to make sure you log it in appropriately inside the app, whether it's cooked or uncooked. One thing I was actually measuring with a measuring cup, it was oatmeal, and I took a cup of it and I measured it, and then I took I took the actual physical measurement of it on the scale, and I was actually 100 calories off, and so that actually excuse me. That kind of adds up over time. If I'm hitting like 3,500 calories, like that's not necessarily going to be a big deal. But if you're trying to eat under 1,500 calories and you're 100 calories off in just one aspect of one meal, then you can get into really, really big issues. So that is super duper important. Okay. A quick shout out, I've got a guide in there as well. It talks about freedom through flexibility, kind of breaks down this a lot more as well. It talks about who it's for. One of the points in here, you no longer have to wait for cheat meals to enjoy your favorite foods. You can just, I always kind of joke, I cheat every day. And so no day is a cheat day, or no meal is necessarily a cheat meal. And as soon as I get that out of my head, it makes it a lot easier. It's just, appropriate calories and macros for it, and I just allow it to happen. And by doing that, it makes it so much easier to just do it. So if I were to have ice cream tonight, I would have a reasonable amount, and then I would just account that and make sure that I'm getting all my other numbers hit to get that. There's another couple things in here, points where like the guilt, shame, the emotional issues that come with food restriction are not worth it. Ultimately the number one thing that I'm after for is adherence. Then everything else comes after that. So if you can adhere to the plan and be consistent about it, then we actually have something to talk about. If you're not, then guess what? We go back to day one, square one. And that's conversations that I've had with people even today. It's like, hey, you're not getting what you want. Why? What are you not doing that you need to do? What are the little tiny details that you need to do every single day that are going to allow you to create the big shift that you want in terms of our time working together and your physical body? And so you need to know what the heck you're doing and follow that stuff and know how to shift. See if there's anything else important. I'm looking at it. It just really breaks down super quick. Protein is 4 calories per gram. Carbs are 4 calories per gram. Fat is 9 calories per gram. It's twice as expensive in terms of calories as protein and carbs. You can get away with a lot more of the carbs and proteins than you can fats. Talks about how to read a nutrition label, how to track it, so we've already just talked about. How to set the macros, we're going to go over that here in a second. Goes over some frequently asked questions. So, it's good stuff. Okay. Let's get into the actual concept of what we need to do. One is the macronutrient ratios, okay? If you look at like the government's view on things, I would kind of ignore it. On food labels, they have the 2,000 calorie diet protocol, and it always gives you percentages of the carbs, protein, fats. Excuse me. Carbs, protein, fats that are there. and so it's all based on the 2,000 calorie diets that the government recommends. Okay, everyone's different. They move different. They burn different. My metabolism, my metabolic rate is going to be higher than most users because I've been consistently and steadily working out. I move a lot in a day, and so I need an absorbent amount of calories to fill my need. And that's kind of the first thing, is establishing your personal TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, and then establishing the macronutrient target. So going back again to what the government says, usually it's like 50 or more carbs percentage, and or we even go back into like the 80s and 90s when we did as a protocol was low fat, and the whole nation would kind of roll on the low fat diets, and those paved the way to obesity in the 90s and even getting up to today. So we know that you need enough fat in the diet. So here's some general recommendations for ratios, macronutrient ratios that I kind of go by in my head and shift to people, give to them. So anywhere between 20 and 30% fats. So you can just average that out to 25%. That's critical. We can move on to doing a protein as the amount of your body weight, or a caveat to that is doing a lean body mass. So so if you are overweight by a lot, like say I was like 240 pounds or 260, but I wasn't physically active with that. It's just a lot of body fat. My body fat was like 40% or 35%. Like, that's a lot. That means there's not a lot of muscle or lean body mass on my body. So I'm not going to be prescribing that much. So we can kind of go as a default of what lean body mass would be. So we can go off that as being, for most men, it's going to be anywhere. Obviously, it's depending on body weights. What, like a 200-pound male is going to be about 160 to 170 pounds of lean body mass. As we go lower to like 160-pound male is probably going to have, you can do some simple math off the top of my head. It's going to be 130-ish pounds of lean body mass, something like that. So, and same thing with women. Those type of numbers. Most women, I've noticed through doing lean body mass is to it's like 100, 110. Ways to determine lean body mass, the simplest one is just go get measured. You can do it in a variety of different ways, from BodPod, which there are some in the area. I know the University of Akron has one. There's probably some others floating around. You can get skin calipers done. You can do underwater weighing. You can do a DEXA scan. Those are some most more accurate ways, but a caveat to that is that we need to make sure that you know that there is, or you can do those handheld ones that send the electric pulse to you, and there is always a percent error. Okay, usually it's 2 to more percent error. Give me 1 second. So those would be the easiest ways to just go get it measured. I've done it in the past. I like to spend the time that I have with clients working, engaging with them on bigger things than measuring them. I've measured a lot of people in my time. It's very time consuming, so it doesn't do that. There's calculators online as well that can kind of give you an idea. See if I got a real easy formula. Give me 1 second. Should have had this ready, but this is a pop question. See if I can answer this. So a lean body mass is organs, blood, bones, muscle, skin, things that are essential to your need. Lean body mass is equal to your body weight minus your body fat. So we need to do the body fat formula. Un momento. It's a formula. BMI is a height to weight ratio. That is not the same. So usually like say like insurance companies or like your work will measure body fat or BMI, body mass index. And so what happens is that it's a height to weight ratio, and what happens there is that like say I was super bulked up and I was like 225 pounds. I was like 10% body fat. Well, and I was not 6 foot. I was 5'5" or five. Let's go with 5'7". Okay, a little bit taller. So real short, stocky, but bulky dude with muscle. He'd be considered obese in that category. Whereas someone that is say like 6'4" and like 10% body fat and they're like 200 pounds, they'd be underweight. So it's kind of like that, if that makes sense. So those are just very general height to weight ratios. 20, the mid 20s is a good ratio to be in. Above 25, you're starting to get overweight. Over 30 is you are considered obese. Under 20, you end up getting to under 20 is you're underweight by a lot. All right, I'm gonna skip this. There's a lot of just minute. Let me give one more whirl. I'm finding the formula for lean body mass. A lot of it is just do on online calculators if need be nowadays. And here we go. Estimating body fat. Equations for adult body fat. So 1.2 times your BMI. This is for men. Then you add those to 0.23 times your age. Then you subtract 10.8, and then you subtract 5.4. So there you go with that, and you can get your body fat there. Then women are it's 1.2 times your BMI plus 0.23 times your age minus 5.4. So they give us an example of a 5'4", 25-year-old female weighing 120 pounds would have a BMI of 20.5 and could estimate her body fat percentage to be about 25% using these calculations. So it kind of goes through that formula and does that. So a lot of math, and you could probably just go find a calculator give you an approximation of where you're at. Okay, I digress. So let's go back to we're talking about protein needs. So in general, most of the women that I work with, 130 to 150 is going to be ideal. For men, we're going to go anywhere from 175 to 200 for most of them. For me, I try to aim about 225. Super active. I spend a lot of time lifting heavy weights and being active, so I'm always interested in trying to have a little bit more. The other caveat to protein in any type of online article, you're going to find 1 gram per pound of body weight all the way to 1.5 grams of body weight, and you can also just do that off of the lean body mass to give you a rough estimate of where your protein needs are. All right, and then let's go carbs. Are going to be generally like 35 to 40%. That's not a low carb. Low carbs would be 20 or under, but I think that you need carbs to fuel your body, and that's something I'm always trying to get people to do. So recap those. So about 25-ish% fats. Protein is going to be about your weights, the numbers that I just kind of rattled off, and then we have carbs are going to be generally like 30 to 40% in that range. So like 40, 30, 30, that's the zone diet. That's the zone diet protocol, which is a very balanced approach. Or you can do like 35 to like 40, 35, 25, carbs, proteins, fats, something like that. So if you ever see me manipulating your macros, it's going to be kind of that type of a macronutrient ratio. When we get into after we find our total daily energy expenditure, what we're looking for is weight loss. We do about 20% reduction, and for muscle gain, we do about 20% over those numbers. And the reason being is for weight loss, yes, you can lose weight faster. Maybe you've tried it. Let me know how successful you are. Most of the time, if people lose weight too fast, it ends up blowing up in their face, and it really is self-prohibited to long-term weight success. It often results in yo-yo dieting. And the more you yo-yo diet, the worse off you're going to be long-term, because the approaches that you're using are usually very caloric restrictive. They're not focused on building any muscle, even maintaining muscle in the body, because you'll just burn it right off you. The body is super duper smart. It says, hey, what are the most important things that I need to maintain on my body. One's my brain, and then it kind of goes there to the muscles, bones, organs, and your muscles last on that list. And so if you're on a really, really calorically starved diet, or even like, we'll go to a super extreme example of like Holocaust victims that were starved, like their muscle becomes very muscle wasting, very bone wasting, and you can actually end up kind of giving yourself osteopenia or something like that. So anything past 20% you can use, but maybe in short bouts. But you need to make sure that you're focusing on maintaining muscle with the proper amount of protein and proper amount of physical exercise that are stressing your body to do that. And when we're bulking or building muscle, that's the kind of phase that I'm in, is I want to do a little bit more than maintenance level. And you may have read or come across stuff in the past, especially in men, is that they want to bulk, they want to grow big muscles, so they just eat everything in sight. And so you end up having way too big of a caloric surplus, which then only leads to you gaining weight. And if you think that you're gaining muscle at an alarmingly fast rate, then I beg to differ. It's probably going to be body fat. So that is definitely what it will happen there. So those are some things. So here's maintenance. Here's where we want to kind of end up here. Just a little minus, like 500 calories is another 20% or 500 calories is a general rough estimate. You can even do up to 1,000, but that would be in very small spurts. So then you don't kind of bottom out your metabolism, as metabolism is super duper adaptive, okay, and it'll slow down. So kind of super brief about the yo-yo things, yo-yo diet. So you start here, you go super aggressive on calorie restriction, your metabolism slows down, you give up and you can't take it anymore, so you break from that restricted diet, you go back to normal eating habits, which say for women, you were eating 2,000 calories, you go down to 1,200 calories, that's 800 calories of a deficit that you've done. Maintain that for X amount of time, then you go into a calorie surplus, back to normal eating. Well, you're not 800 calorie surplus every day, times 7, that goes out to 5,600, and if you believe it's the 3,500 calories is a pound of fat, so that would be like 4 pounds a month. Multiply that over a year's time, like you're end up gaining some weight. Not cool. All right, here let's get some actual formulas. Numbers for calorie intake. So super simple math is you're going to take your body weight, multiply it by 10. Okay, so we can do this here. This is just super general. So I'm about 195. I haven't weighed myself in a really long time. Right now I'm just going off of visuals. And so that's kind of leading me to where I'm at physically, as physique-wise. So if I multiply like 195 times 10, it's about just about 2,000 calories. Okay, so that would be my total daily. That wouldn't be my total daily energy expenditure. That would be my basal metabolic rate. That would be the amount of calories I need every day just to kind of exist. And then if you're really, really overweight, you can kind of go back again to that lean body mass and get a rough estimate of caloric intake there. Now, if you've done macros for a little bit or trying to figure out, like, is this working, is it not working, this is always a guessing game unless you actually go to do a metabolic cart. Then you end up getting into very specific numbers of what your body is metabolism wise, and so that's an actual a metabolic cart would be a metabolism test, and I'll give you specific numbers of where you are actually at. Now, most people aren't going to take the test or spend the money on that, so we have to ballpark, and we can kind of get general guidelines based off your lean body mass and all these things. There's a lot of online calculators that do that. MyFitnessPal does it. There's some calculations that I use to help give me a really good ballpark of where I should put you with food and what that looks like. So let's go to body weight times 10. So it's 1950 for me, so it'd be my basal metabolic rate. Then I have an activity multiplier, so this gets us up to our total daily energy expenditure. For the low end, it'd be 1.3. The high end is 2.3. So I'll take 1950 times 1.3. That's going to be 25.35 for a low, like I'm a sloth, I don't do much activity or sit a lot. Let's go to the high end, so it's like 2,500. And then times 2.3. Gives me up to 44.85. So let's say my caloric range would be 2,500 to 4,500. All right, so that's a very wide range, and this is searching for a maintenance level. So technically, I could eat all the way up to say 4,500 just based on some crude estimates. I subtract 500 to get in a deficit. It gives me about 4,000. I can do 1,000 calories, and I can hit about 3,500 through trial and error, and just doing it for so long. I can estimate that maintenance for me is around like 3,500 calories every day. I could probably get away with 4,000 as well. So those will give you some simple numbers. Okay. To burn fat, what we're looking to do is we're looking to burn 0.5 for men. We're looking to burn 0.5 to 1% per week of body fat per week. For women, we're looking to burn, and that would be, excuse me, that's not what I'm talking about. So burning fat, we are looking to burn between 0.5% to 1% a week. All right, so it's like 1 to 2 pounds a week. That's why safe, reliable, sustainable weight loss is 2 pounds a week. That you will have long-term success. You'll be able to keep it off easy. If you lose 10 pounds in like 2 weeks, guess what happens when you start eating carbs again? Then your body just goes boom, takes it back on. And a brief caveat, what that is what's happening is that in your muscles, your body stores carbohydrates. It's called glycogen. So you eat carbohydrates, it turns into glycogen. It's stored in your muscle. It's like the fuel. And so there's 350 grams of stored fuel in your muscles. In your liver, there's 75 grams of stored fuel of glycogen. Now your body will use that up as you do exercise or just do daily movement, and it'll replenish that. Now one caveat here is that actually 1 gram of glycogen will attract 4 grams of water. Okay, and so what happens there is that so you have 5 grams of weight per every gram per se of glycogen that's in your body. So when you cut out the carbohydrates and your body starts using up all that stored fuel because you're not replacing it because you're not eating carbs, then you lose a bunch of water weight. That's 5 grams gets burnt up and lost every single time. And so that's when people that have done low carb diets, they add carbs back in. Well, the body attracts water. They're attracting water into their cells and into the glycogen back into the carbohydrates that get stored as glycogen back into their muscles, and that causes a great negative impact for them. And they have big weight swings, and that then results in mood swings, and then an emotional roller coaster, and we're in trouble. So like 2 pounds a week is a phenomenal long-term strategy. Okay. And then when you get to where you're at, don't mess it up and falter. Okay. Building lean muscle. So for men and women, this is about the rate of weight gain that you'd want to see. There's not too often, but every once in a while I'll get some clients who want to gain weight or gain muscle specifically. So this is kind of the category that I'm in. Beginners, men and women, or excuse me, been up since early. Men are 2 to 3 pounds for beginners. Women are like 1 to 2 pounds, or 1 to 1.5. Women they don't have the muscle, they don't have the body to support that. Intermediate, it gets worse. We've been training for a while, so beginners can make huge gains and results in their first couple of weeks and months training. When we get into a little bit immediate, like a year or two, we're looking for 1 to 2 pounds a month for men, and women are like 0.5 to 1 pound per month. And so it's like watching the trees grow. It's really slow. And then advanced, it gets even worse because right then you're just working on principles of overload and trying to do more work and more volume each time that you're in the gym and working. So those are a couple of stats on what you should expect for your weight gain and movement there. Let me pull this up here real quick. So let's go here. Is there any questions somebody might have? Hopefully it's been sure, so I'm just looking up with some quick FAQs and see if I missed anything. It's really about the 80-20% rule and making sure that 80-90% of the time that you're really focusing on proper nutrition and food to eat. Really good clean foods, and the majority of the day should be like that. We're really only eating about like 30 foods throughout the majority of your time. And so those foods we really want to be dialed in, and then those extra foods are things that we want to do outside of that. I pulled up the wrong thing. Here we go. A couple other quick frequently asked questions that we usually get here is how many meals should I eat in a day? Generally 3 to 6 meals is typically recommended. If you think 5, that ends up being a really good winner. That's like a breakfast type meal, snack, lunch, snack, and a dinner that really gets you fed throughout the day, keeps your insulin levels, your blood sugar levels maintain blood sugar levels, maintain insulin levels down, which allow you to burn body fat. And it just the pacing of it every 3 to 4 hours is a good time for him to do, because you never get overly hungry, and you're able to have long-term success with that. Now, so it really doesn't matter if you want 3 meals a day, and you just have larger meals. If you have 6 meals a day, you have smaller meals. It's really that simple. So whatever your macronutrient or your caloric, say your calories, say you're eating, let's do simple math, 2,000 calories, and you're having 5 meals. Well, that's 5 400-calorie meals. You're having 3 meals for 2,000 in a day. We're looking at like 650 or so. So some simple math there. Okay. Should I be eating a certain type of food? You don't want to get confused. The flexible model is pretty much that. It's flexible. It allows you to have a lot of wide varieties. You can have foods that you really enjoy sparingly. And then it can also allow you to have foods that you should be eating, you should be enjoying, like clean and good, healthy, wholesome meals. A lot of time people think of as dinner would be ideal for that. Build your meals around protein always. You don't need to have your phone. There's another question is like, how do I track my macros if I don't have a phone or whatever? You can just get online on a desktop. You do need internet. I think everybody has internet. So always have to track. You're human, so you don't necessarily always have to. I recommend that you do on a somewhat regular basis to keep you in check until you hit your goals, and this allows you to really focus in on what you're really working toward. Okay. What happens if I run out of macros too early in the day? I've done this. Maybe you have too. I just stop eating. Pretty simple. If I run out of macros in a specific thing, I don't eat any more of that specific macronutrient. So if I run out of carbs by the end of the day, but I have protein and fat, then I'm probably going to get some eggs, or cook some chicken and coconut oil, or even maybe drizzle olive oil over chicken, or have an avocado and chicken, or tuna, or like whatever. Like those are going to be how I'm designing my meals. I'm not going to eat any more carbs. Okay, so an avocado would have some carbs in it, but it's primarily fat. So what happens is that the next day you learn. A classic example of this would be I was on a pretty carb restrictive time. It was like 250 carbs, so you might think that's a lot, but that was not a lot for me at the time. And so 250 carbs, I had about maybe it was like 200, but I had like 150 carbs at one meal at 11 a.m. It was breakfast. It was Wally waffles, 3 pancakes, sausage. I think I had like banana and some nuts and bacon, and it was just and syrup, and it was a monstrous amount of carbs and fats. And the rest of the day, I just really didn't really eat. I had just like chicken and broccoli the rest of the day because I had such a large amount of calories and carbohydrates in one meal. I got to the end of the day and I survived. It was a little rough because I made it rough. I didn't plan out that first meal properly. When should I stop using flexible dieting? And really want you to kind of take away that this is a lifestyle and not a fad diet or something. Like this is just the way you live. This is the way I live every day. It's a give and take relationship with the food and the choices that I make. I'm human. I can analyze and assess and really kind of comprehend the foods that I'm taking, the choices I'm making, and how that is ultimately going to react to the physical representation of my body that I want to have. And so if those are my goals, then I can easily maintain flexible dieting without any stress. I'm not hitting my macros and can't always. Leave to eat during the day. Thus, tonight at 8, I had a really big meal and I'm kind of miserable. So, I'm not hitting my macros. Fantastic. I'm so glad you brought this up because I almost wouldn't even think about it because, well, you can do two things with this. One is you just kind of skip out on your food intake for that day and learn and assess and adjust tomorrow. So you end up, okay, I wasn't even close to my carb intake or whatever. Or for women, it's protein. I didn't hit my protein at all, and so what happens there is that we want to then plan and assess that we need to probably have protein earlier in the day and larger quantities. The two ways to get more protein in you are going to be one, eating more at one time, or increasing the frequency. That's it. Or maybe just pick a different protein to pick and eat, so then you actually enjoy it. Don't kill chicken, don't kill eggs, don't kill any type of food because you eat so much of it you can't stand it. That's a horrible idea, and I highly recommend you don't do that. So don't eat chicken until you're blue in the face because you're eating cold boiled chicken or something silly like that. So let's go back to this example of getting stuffed. I've done that myself. I think one time I posted in the group was I had a family portion size of food for my last meal because I had like 200 carbs, I had like 60 grams of protein, and it was just I was stuffed. I was really full, and I was like, why did I eat so much food? Or better yet, why didn't I make a priority to eat earlier in the day? And so that's a more important question for you to look at. Is like, if you want a certain physique, if you want a certain health level, if you want certain results or activities or fitness or your goals align that way, then you need to make it a priority that you're getting in the macros that you have been recommended to do. And so then we can learn how your body's responding to it and then take appropriate actions to monitor, measure, tweak, twist, pivot, and get a better result the next week. Each week is a learning week. If you start on Monday and you get to Saturday, Sunday, and you haven't made progress, you need to look back in your week and analyze at what points did I fail myself. You're failing yourself if you're not looking back and recognizing, oh, on this day I had more wine than I should have. On this day I had ice cream, or this day I totally skipped all my macros and barely ate anything, or this day I had fast food, or whatever it is. Like it's your personal responsibility to get those macros in and do that, and it becomes a matter of congruency. This is a big thing that I live on and live by because it kind of affects my every single day. It's my livelihood. It's the way I want to look and feel. It's my energy. It's all those things. And if I'm not doing the small detail things that are going to make a big difference, then I'm failing myself, and I pay for that dearly in a wide variety of different ways. And like most obvious would be, let me show up in like 3 months with a gut, and let me gain like 40 pounds in the next couple of months, and you tell me how excited you are to work with me. Probably not that much. Like, wow, Brian's really like not doing it anymore. Like, what happened? So I would suggest, if you're not hitting your macros, you double down the next day and focus on doing that. Learn what you need to learn from today and move forward from there. Okay, hopefully that helps. And if you get to the end of the day and you have to eat a big meal, then guess what? You eat a big meal. Or you eat one at like 9 and then you eat one again at like midnight before you go to bed. I rarely eat before I go to bed. I have a very large meal waiting for me here shortly because my day was full. I didn't necessarily plan out my meals as well. So I've got a monstrous meal to eat and consume. I'm kind of excited about it to be real about it. I didn't give you general guidelines about fiber or sugar. Fiber, 14 grams per 1,000 calories is a general recommendation. I always overshoot that to gear you to eat more fibrous carbs in form of fruit, vegetables, or starches. And so, for women, I say 20, 25 grams a day. Men, we should be hitting 50 or more. And that just goes into your carbohydrate sources. So some days, if I'm having a high carbohydrate day, I can consume like 100 grams of fiber. I'm easily clearing 50 most days. So a couple of things here. We'll wrap up. Unless you have other questions, is eat a wide variety of food, track regularly so you have a really good, strong idea of where you're at and what you need to do. I would ditch any concepts of what society and specifically marketing say about what's healthy and unhealthy because it's all bollocks. It's all nonsense, okay? If you understand how to read a food label, you understand how to read the ingredients list on there, you understand what the food actually is, and you have more power than whatever your neighbor, your friend, your relative, some label says about the marketing to that food, like gluten or that's just something that just popped up on the top of my head. Or fat-free type items. Like, they could be healthy, could not. How do they fit into your diet? Get as many vitamins and minerals through whole food. I'm always a proponent of whole food, more so than not. Protein, if you're having trouble getting your protein needs, the protein powder is a fantastic way to add some in. For women, I would recommend 1 to 2 scoops a day. Gentlemen, 2-ish. If you really had to, do 3, but any more than that stuff, I just recommend it. You just need to find a protein source. Make sure that you get your meals to fit your schedule and not your schedule to fit your meals. We don't want to be food obsessed. We want to just have it work. So someone that's super duper busy, and they're like they're showing it like I have a couple nurses. They're just so busy throughout the day that sitting down to 6 meals would be a headache. It'd be a nightmare. They'd never be able to do it. So if they could get 3 meals in a day, that's great. Or if we can strategically plan their day around that stuff, the very active times, that'd be great. I regularly don't eat till about noon most days because in the morning I am super busy. I wake up between like 6 and 7 most days, and then I'm working with clients till about noonish 1, and that's when the time gets really a lot less compact or less busy, and so that's when I eat. I think that's about it. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I talked a long time, and we will catch you later.